Michael Turner had always believed his marriage to Grace was the one unshakable constant in his life. They had been together for 15 years, through the awkward trials of their 20s, the pressures of starting careers, the joy of buying their small home in Evanston, Illinois, and the shared grief of losing Grace's mother. Through every storm, she had been steady, calm, and endlessly supportive. If there had been cracks, he hadn't noticed, or perhaps he had chosen not to. Grace's death had been sudden. A car accident on a rainy night in late October had ripped her away from him. Michael remembered the hospital's cold hallways, the doctor's flat, practiced tone, the numbing disbelief that followed. In the weeks after, he moved like a ghost through their home, her perfume still lingering on scarves draped across chairs, her handwriting still pinned to the fridge. It was only after the funeral, when her family returned to their homes scattered across the Midwest, that Michael finally turned his attention to the house itself. Alone in the quiet, he tried to tidy, to bring some order back to the place. That was when he discovered the chest. It was tucked in the back of their bedroom closet, behind a row of Grace's winter coats. Michael didn't remember ever seeing it before. It was an old cedar box, scarred with scratches, its brass latch dulled with age. Something about it felt deliberate, hidden. His first thought was that it might contain family keepsakes, old letters, or photographs. Grace had always been sentimental. When he pried it open, a faint smell of cedar and dust filled the air. Inside were a few neatly folded sweaters, beneath them a single black notebook. Its leather cover was worn, the spine softened as though it had been opened hundreds of times. Michael's breath caught. Grace had never mentioned keeping a journal. Hands trembling, he lifted it out. On the first page, her familiar handwriting stared back at him. This journal is not for anyone else. If you are reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong. Michael sank onto the edge of the bed, pulse hammering in his ears. He hesitated. Was it a violation to keep going? But curiosity, mixed with grief and an unexplainable dread, pushed him forward. The entries began innocently enough. Notes about her daily frustrations at work, small triumphs in the garden, descriptions of dinners they had shared. He almost closed the book in relief. But then, halfway through, the tone shifted. There are things I can't say aloud. Things Michael would never forgive. So I write them here, in the only place I can be honest. Michael froze. His stomach twisted, fingers tightening around the edges of the book. The next entries unveiled details he had never imagined. Grace spoke of loneliness, of feeling unseen, of needing something beyond the life they had built together. Then, chillingly, she began writing about someone else. A man. She never used his name at first, only initials, DM. She wrote of secret meetings, of conversations that lasted long into the night, of a passion that made her feel alive in ways she hadn't for years. Michael read on, heart in his throat. Each word felt like a betrayal shouted across time. He wanted to slam the journal shut, but he couldn't stop. The pages pulled him deeper into a version of Grace he didn't recognize. One entry seared itself into his mind. Michael believes he knows me, but he only knows the part I've shown him. With D.M., I can be my true self. If Michael ever discovered the truth, it would destroy him. Michael's hands shook so violently he almost dropped the book. A hot wave of nausea surged through him. He staggered to his feet, pacing the room, clutching the journal like it was both lifeline and poison. The grief that had been numbing him cracked open, replaced with fury and confusion. Had their entire marriage been a lie? Had she been planning to leave him? He sat back down, forcing himself to keep reading, desperate for clarity. The later entries became more explicit, plans whispered with D.M., about money, about an escape, about a future without Michael. And then came the most devastating line yet. I have started putting money aside. If the time comes, I'll be ready to walk away. Michael deserves someone who can love him completely, and that person is not me. Michael's vision blurred. He slammed the journal shut, chest heaving. The house felt colder, emptier, hostile. He looked around their bedroom, his and Grace's sanctuary, and it suddenly felt foreign. Every framed photo, every piece of furniture they had picked together seemed tainted. Hours passed. Michael sat in the dark, staring at the journal resting on the bed. He couldn't decide whether to burn it, hide it, or confront it. But the words haunted him, echoing in his head like a refrain. That person is not me. Sleep was impossible. At dawn, He opened the journal again, driven by something between masochism and desperation. Toward the back, a passage made his blood run cold. If anything ever happens to me, I need to make this clear, it won't be an accident. DM has a temper. Sometimes I fear what he might do if I tried to leave. Michael's breath caught, the words slicing through him like glass. His hands went numb, the book slipping from his grip onto the floor. For the first time since Grace's death, Michael felt something stronger than grief, an urgent, suffocating terror. Had his wife's accident not been an accident at all? Michael couldn't shake the words from his mind. He carried the journal everywhere in the house, as if leaving it alone for even a moment would allow it to vanish and take its secrets with it. His thoughts spiraled. Grace, the woman he had devoted his life to, had been preparing to leave him. She had been hiding money, meeting someone else, dreaming of an escape he had never suspected. The more he read, the more a sickening paranoia grew inside him, wrapping itself around every memory of their marriage. Nights spent at the office late. Maybe she hadn't been at the office at all. Those mysterious weekends away for work conferences? Perhaps they were rendezvous. Every smile she had given him, every kiss goodnight, now felt tainted with betrayal. He wanted answers, but the only person who could give them was gone. Still, one name, or rather, two initials, echoed in his head. DM. Who was he? Michael began to dig. He started with Grace's phone records, still saved through their joint account. At first, nothing unusual appeared. Then he noticed a recurring number, always around late evenings. He called it, but it went straight to voicemail. He scrolled through old photos on her laptop, searching for anything out of place. Most were normal, vacations, dinners, family gatherings. But then he saw one that unsettled him. It was taken in their backyard, the light of late summer washing everything gold. Grace was smiling, but in the reflection of the sliding glass door behind her, a man's silhouette loomed. Tall, broad-shouldered, impossible to mistake. Yet Michael had never seen him before. His stomach twisted. He brought it up to his sister-in-law, Claire, a week later, hoping for support. Grace? An affair? She laughed bitterly when he mentioned the journal. Michael, you're grieving. Don't twist her memory with paranoid fantasies. She loved you. Don't dishonor her now. The words stung, but they also enraged him. He wasn't dishonoring Grace. She had already dishonored herself. Still, the rest of the family echoed Claire's sentiment. They didn't want to hear about secret men, hidden money, or cryptic journal entries. To them, Michael was becoming unhinged, tarnishing Grace's memory with delusions born of grief. The isolation cut deep. He had no one to confide in, no one to help him piece together the truth. Yet the journal remained, relentless. Its pages held more than heartbreak. They hinted at something darker. There were vague references to a storage unit, to accounts under her maiden name, to meetings by the lake. Michael pored over these fragments, scribbling notes, chasing leads that dissolved into dead ends. One night, after hours of obsessing, he finally located a storage facility in a nearby town listed under her maiden name. His pulse raced as he signed in under her information, half expecting to be denied. But the clerk handed him a key. The unit was small and musty, filled with boxes Grace had never mentioned. Inside, Michael found things that shattered him further. Envelopes of cash, documents for a bank account he'd never seen, photographs of Grace with the same tall man from the backyard reflection. One photo made his hands shake violently. It showed Grace and the man holding hands at a diner he recognized only too well. It was in their neighborhood, just a mile from their house. She hadn't even bothered to hide that close to home. Rage flared inside him. He felt like a stranger in his own life, a fool who had been blind while betrayal bloomed right under his nose. Yet beneath the anger lurked something far more terrifying, fear. Because tucked between the photos was a folded note, written in Grace's hand. If I disappear, look to him. He isn't who he says he is. Michael stumbled back, breath ragged. His mind raced. Was this man involved in her death? Had her accident been orchestrated? If so, why had no one else seen the signs? He tried bringing his suspicions to the police, but they brushed him off. Without evidence, they said, there was no case. They reminded him the accident report was clear. Hydroplaning on slick pavement, nothing more. Michael left the station feeling smaller than ever, clutching the journal to his chest as though it were the only proof of his sanity. The walls of his life were closing in. His wife was gone, her family despised him for questioning her memory, and the police thought he was delusional. But Michael knew one thing with searing certainty. Grace's words were real, her fears were real, and D.M. was real. And if D.M. still walked free, Michael's life might be in danger too. That night, as rain lashed against the windows, Michael sat alone at the kitchen table, the journal open before him. His reflection stared back from the glass, hollow-eyed, trembling. Grace had written one final entry before her death. Tomorrow will decide everything. I hope I make it through. Michael's breath caught as he realized the date. It was the night before the accident. Michael's days blurred together after uncovering the note in Grace's journal about her fear of DM. He went to work mechanically, ate without tasting food, slept in fragments haunted by images of his wife with a faceless man looming over her. The journal became his constant companion, carried from room to room like an extension of his own grief. He kept rereading the passages, searching for hidden meanings, praying there had been some mistake. But the words never changed, and each night he was left with the same unbearable truth. Grace had lived a double life, and that double life might have killed her. The isolation pressed on him like a physical weight. Grace's family dismissed his suspicions, his friends urged him to move on, and the police treated him like a grieving widower grasping at shadows. He had no one, until the phone rang one afternoon with a voice he hadn't expected. "Michael, this is Anna Williams. I don't know if you remember me. Grace and I were close in college." Michael vaguely recalled her, a tall woman with bright eyes who had visited them once years ago. He hadn't thought of her in ages. "I need to see you," she said quickly, her tone tight. "It's about Grace, and about the man she was involved with." The words sent ice through his veins. They agreed to meet at a small cafe on the edge of town, a quiet place with more empty tables than customers. Anna looked older than he remembered, her face lined and pale, as though she carried her own private burdens. She leaned forward across the table before Michael had even sat down. "Grace told me about him," she said. "David Miller. That's who DM is." Michael froze, his breath catching in his throat. To hear the initials transformed into a name made everything suddenly real in a way it hadn't been before. "You knew about him all this time?" Anna nodded, shame flickering in her expression. "She confided in me because she was terrified. At first, she said he was exciting, someone who made her feel alive again. But later she realized he was controlling, manipulative. She tried to break it off, but he wouldn't let her. He threatened her, Michael. She thought if she told you, it would put you in danger." Michael's hands clenched around his coffee cup until his knuckles whitened. "Danger? You're telling me this man could have..." His voice cracked. He couldn't finish. "Grace once called me sobbing," Anna interrupted softly. "She said she was scared of what he might do if she left. That was about a month before her accident." Michael's mind spun. Accident. The word now felt like a cruel joke. He pushed forward, desperate. "What else did she tell you?" Anna hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. "She gave me this. Told me if anything ever happened to her, it was meant for you." Michael's pulse hammered as he tore the envelope open. Inside were photocopies of bank statements showing transfers into an account under David Miller's name. Notes Grace had written with addresses and cryptic lines like "meetings at the lake" and "don't trust what he says." One page stopped Michael's breath entirely. "If he knows I'm leaving, he'll kill me." His hands shook so violently, he almost dropped the papers. The world around him dimmed, the chatter of the cafe fading to silence. It was all here. Proof Grace had been entangled with this man, terrified of him, planning to escape. Proof that her death might not have been random at all. "We have to take this to the police," Michael whispered, his throat dry. Anna's expression hardened. "We can try, but do you really think they'll listen? Without concrete evidence, they'll dismiss it like they did with you before. You need more." Michael stared at her, heart pounding. "More? How much more do they need?" She literally wrote he might kill her. Anna shook her head. "They'll call it paranoia, the ramblings of a woman caught in an affair. They'll say she imagined it. We need something that ties him directly to her death." Michael slumped back, despair flooding him. It wasn't enough. Even her own written fear wouldn't be enough. He had been naive to think the truth alone would matter. For the first time since Grace's death, though, he didn't feel completely alone. Anna believed him. She wasn't dismissing him like the others. That fragile thread of connection steadied him. "Then what do we do?" he asked quietly. "We watch him," Anna said. "We find him, follow him, dig into his life. Grace left us breadcrumbs. We have to use them." Michael stared at her, torn between terror and a strange, dangerous hope. He had never thought of himself as the kind of man who could stalk someone, who could risk everything to uncover hidden truths. But Grace's face filled his mind, her laugh, her touch, the betrayal he had uncovered, and finally the pleading words in her handwriting. "If he knows I'm leaving, he'll kill me." He nodded slowly. "Okay, we find him." For the first time in weeks, his grief ignited into something fierce and burning: purpose. That night, though, when Michael returned home, the fragile hope twisted into dread. Waiting on his doorstep was a plain white envelope. No return address, no handwriting on the outside. Inside was a single photograph: Grace and David Miller, seated at a restaurant, smiling as though nothing in the world was wrong. Across the back, in jagged scrawl, were 4 words that made Michael's blood run cold: "Stop digging, or else." Michael barely slept after finding the photograph. Every creak of the house made him jolt awake, convinced someone was outside. He double-locked the doors, closed the blinds, and kept the journal under his pillow like a talisman, though it offered no protection, only questions. Who had slipped the envelope under his door? How had they known where he lived, what he was doing, what he had begun to uncover? The threat written across the back of the photo echoed in his skull: "Stop digging, or else." It wasn't just paranoia anymore. Someone was watching him. The next day, he called Anna in a panic. She listened quietly, then said, "It means we're close. Otherwise, why would they try to scare you?" Her voice carried conviction, but Michael could hear the tremor beneath it. They met again, this time in his car, parked in an abandoned lot by the lake Grace had written about. The November wind howled around them, rattling the windows. "We need to know what David Miller is hiding," Anna said firmly. "I've done some searching. He has no consistent employment record, no stable address, but somehow he drives a new car every year. That kind of life doesn't come from nothing." Michael felt himself spiraling. "And you think Grace got caught up in whatever he was doing?" Anna nodded. "Maybe she wanted out not just of the relationship, but of whatever business he pulled her into. That could explain why she was so afraid." Michael's chest tightened. Each new revelation pulled Grace further from the woman he had loved into someone he barely recognized, someone who had lived a life of secrets and lies. Still, beneath the anger, he wanted to protect her memory, to believe she hadn't deserved the fate she met. Together, they started watching David Miller. He lived in a sleek apartment downtown, the kind that cost far more than his non-existent work history could justify. Michael and Anna took turns parked on the street nearby, noting who came and went. Men in suits at odd hours, unmarked vans stopping briefly before disappearing into the night, visitors who never stayed long enough for a meal. The pattern was unmistakable. Something illegal was happening. Michael's paranoia grew into obsession. He stopped showing up for work, ignored calls from friends, barely ate. His entire existence funneled into surveillance, notes, theories. Grace's journal sat open on his desk, its passages mapped against Miller's movements as though the 2 texts could be reconciled. Yet no matter how many hours he poured into it, nothing gave him peace. Instead, every lead ended in more confusion. One night, as Michael sat in his car outside Miller's building, he saw something that shattered him. Miller emerged with a woman. She was younger, smiling up at him with the same dazzled expression Michael recognized from Grace's early photos with him. The sight made Michael's stomach twist violently. It wasn't just Grace. He was doing it again, weaving another woman into his net. Michael gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles burned, fighting the urge to leap out and confront him. But reason, thin, frayed reason, kept him seated. He couldn't blow everything now. He needed proof, something undeniable. Yet proof was slipping away. 2 nights later, when he returned to the storage unit where he had found Grace's photos, he discovered the lock broken and the boxes gone. Every trace of evidence had vanished. He staggered inside the empty unit, his breath fogging in the cold, and realized someone had been one step ahead of him all along. Rage and despair collided in him, leaving him trembling on the concrete floor. It was all unraveling. Grace's family called him hysterical. His boss left a message warning him about job abandonment. Even Anna grew distant, urging caution when Michael demanded they confront Miller directly. "You're not thinking clearly," she said during a late-night call. "We can't just storm in there. He's dangerous. You'll get yourself killed." Michael exploded. "So we just sit back? Let him do this to someone else. Grace tried to stop him, and she's dead. What do you think he'll do if we wait?" Silence followed. Then Anna whispered, "I don't want to lose you too." Her words cut deeper than he expected. For a moment, Michael remembered he wasn't completely alone, that someone cared. But the illusion shattered the next morning when he woke to find a brick through his window and a single message scrawled on cardboard inside. "Last warning." He collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. Everything was slipping beyond his control, his home violated, his job on the line, his sanity questioned. Grace's ghost hovered over him, equal parts love and betrayal, urging him forward and dragging him down. That night, in a fit of desperation, he drove to Miller's building with no plan, only fury. He waited until Miller stepped out, followed him through dark streets, heart pounding with every turn. He thought of Grace's words, of the final entry in her journal. Tomorrow will decide everything. He wondered if tomorrow had come for him too. But when Miller suddenly glanced over his shoulder, eyes locking on Michael's, the confrontation he had imagined vanished. Miller smirked, a slow, knowing smile, then slipped into a bar filled with people. Michael froze on the sidewalk, drenched in sweat. The smirk said everything. It wasn't Michael watching Miller. It was Miller watching him. Michael couldn't erase the smirk from his mind. It followed him home, into his dreams, and clung to him like a stain he couldn't scrub away. Miller knew. He wasn't just a man hiding secrets. He was a man who thrived on being seen, on letting his prey know he was in control. Michael had spent weeks building himself up to face this monster, but the truth hit him like a punch in the gut. Miller wasn't afraid of exposure. He was daring Michael to try. Days bled together in a haze of fear and rage. The brick through his window still sat in a corner of the living room, untouched, a constant reminder that his home was no longer safe. He thought of going to the police again, but what could he say? "My wife wrote that she feared this man, and now I've been following him around town." They'd laugh him out of the station. Anna called, urging him to stay calm, to step back, but Michael's patience had burned away. "He killed her," Michael shouted into the phone one night. "He killed Grace, and he'll keep doing it unless I stop him." Anna's voice cracked, pleading, "Then let me help you. Don't do this alone." But Michael was already gone, swallowed by his obsession. On Friday evening, he parked outside Miller's apartment building with a kitchen knife hidden in his jacket pocket. He told himself it was only for protection, but deep down he knew he wanted more. He wanted Miller to feel fear, to feel hunted. Hours crawled by until Miller appeared, laughing with the same young woman Michael had seen earlier. They walked arm in arm, and jealousy roared through Michael like fire. Grace's ghost seemed to walk beside them, replaced, forgotten. He followed at a distance, his knife a heavy weight, until they reached a quiet street where the woman kissed Miller on the cheek and left. Michael's chance. His pulse thundered. He stepped out of the shadows, voice breaking. "David Miller." Miller turned, recognition flickering across his face before curling into that same damn smirk. "Michael Barnes," he said smoothly, as if greeting an old friend. Finally, Michael's blood ran cold. "You knew I'd come." Miller shrugged. "Of course. You've been following me like a lost dog. You want answers, don't you? About Grace." The sound of her name from Miller's lips made Michael lunge forward, grabbing his collar. "What did you do to her?" Miller didn't resist. He leaned closer, his breath hot against Michael's ear. "She begged me not to leave her. She said she'd give me anything if I stayed. And then she changed her mind. That's the problem with women like her. They think they can play both sides." Michael's vision blurred red. He raised the knife, shaking with rage. "You killed her." Miller only smiled wider. "Prove it." For a heartbeat, time froze. Michael could see it all. The trial, the headlines, his life crumbling as he tried to convince a jury that the charming man before him was a murderer. Without evidence, it would be his word against Miller's. And the police already thought he was unstable. Miller saw the hesitation and chuckled softly. "Go ahead. Do it. Stab me here in the street. They'll call you the grieving husband who lost his mind. Meanwhile, I'll live forever in her memory, the man she wanted more than you." The words pierced Michael deeper than any blade could. His grip tightened, the knife trembling inches from Miller's chest. He could end it here: justice, revenge, closure. But another voice rose in his mind, softer, sadder. Grace's voice. Don't let him take you too. Michael's chest heaved, sweat pouring down his face. Miller leaned into the blade, daring him. Do it, he whispered. Make me a martyr. In that unbearable moment, Michael saw the trap for what it was. Killing Miller would destroy him, not Miller. It would erase what little of Grace's truth still remained. With a guttural cry, Michael dropped the knife. It clattered against the pavement, echoing like a gunshot in the night. Miller laughed, a cruel, echoing laugh that twisted Michael's stomach. That's what I thought, he said, stepping back. You don't have the courage. Michael fell to his knees, gasping, every part of him trembling. Miller crouched, tilting his head. You want my advice? Stop digging. Forget her. Or the next picture you get won't just be of her, it'll be of you. Then he was gone, footsteps fading into the darkness, leaving Michael broken on the ground. Michael stayed there for what felt like hours, the weight of the knife's absence heavier than the blade itself. He had faced his enemy, stared into the abyss, and failed to act. Or perhaps he had saved himself from becoming something worse. He didn't know. All he knew was that Grace was gone, Miller was alive, and his own soul was hanging by a thread. Michael sat awake until dawn, staring at his trembling hands. The knife was still out there, lying in the street where he had dropped it, though by now it was surely gone. Taken by someone, swept away by the city as if his night of confrontation had never existed. But it had. Every word, every smirk from Miller echoed through him like a curse. He had faced the man he believed responsible for Grace's death, and instead of delivering justice, he had faltered, crumbled under the weight of rage and fear. Yet even as shame consumed him, a thin strand of relief wound through the despair. He hadn't become Miller. He hadn't surrendered himself completely to vengeance. And yet, what was left of him now? His house felt haunted, not by ghosts but by emptiness. Grace's journal remained on the table, its pages worn and smudged by his hands. He opened it again, rereading passages he knew by heart, searching for something he had missed. On the final page, below Grace's writing, he noticed faint indentations he hadn't seen before. Pressing a pencil sideways across the paper, the hidden words surfaced. If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. Don't trust Anna. Michael's breath stopped. His mind reeled back through every moment. The envelope Anna had delivered, her insistence that the police wouldn't believe him, her warnings to stay away from direct confrontation, her sudden closeness. A sickening thought took root. Had Anna been protecting him or manipulating him? Had she been part of Miller's world all along? The revelation unmoored him completely. His one remaining ally had turned to smoke. Alone again, Michael spent the next days in a fog of paranoia. He avoided calls, barely slept, and jumped at every sound. His job officially fired him, though he hardly noticed. The only thing he could think of was Grace's hidden warning, "Don't trust Anna." It explained too much. Why had she held on to Grace's evidence for so long without saying a word until now? Why had she been so quick to steer him away from the police? And the photograph left at his doorstep, had Anna delivered it herself, under the guise of protecting him? One evening, unable to bear the doubt, Michael drove to Anna's apartment. The building loomed dark and quiet, but her car sat outside. He rang the buzzer, his pulse racing, but no one answered. Desperation overtook him. He found a side door unlocked and slipped inside, heart hammering in his chest, as though he were crossing into forbidden territory. Her apartment was neat, almost sterile, except for one thing: a folder lying open on the coffee table. Inside were photographs, surveillance shots of him. Michael in his car, Michael outside Miller's building, Michael leaving his house. Page after page. At the bottom of the stack was one final picture: Grace, smiling faintly, sitting beside Anna at a cafe. On the back, in Grace's handwriting, was a single line: "She promised to protect me." Michael's knees gave out, and he sank onto the couch, the folder sliding from his hands. His mind spun. Was Anna Grace's protector, or her betrayer? Had she been trying to help, or had she been part of the trap all along? The truth was tangled beyond recognition, a knot he could never untangle. Suddenly a sound came from behind him. The door opened, and Anna stepped in, freezing when she saw him. "Michael!" she breathed, her eyes darting to the folder. You shouldn't be here. His voice cracked, raw with betrayal. What is this? Why do you have pictures of me? Anna set her bag down slowly, her expression unreadable. I was watching you. For your safety. Michael shook his head violently. No. Grace wrote not to trust you. She knew. She warned me. Anna flinched, pain flickering across her face. Grace was scared of everything by the end. She didn't know who to trust, not even me. But I never betrayed her. I loved her too. Maybe not the way you did, but she was my family. Michael stared at her, caught between fury and despair. Could that be true? Or was it another layer of manipulation? He would never know. His voice broke. Then why didn't you go to the police with this? Why didn't you save her? Anna's eyes filled with tears. Because I was afraid. Afraid of him. Afraid of what would happen if I stood alone. And now, you're all that's left of her, Michael. If you give up, then she really dies. Silence thickened between them, broken only by the pounding of Michael's heart. He realized the truth didn't matter anymore. Whether Anna had lied or loved, whether Miller had killed Grace or merely destroyed her spirit, nothing could bring her back. What mattered was what he did now, with his life, with her memory. Slowly, he rose, closing the folder with trembling hands. I can't live in this anymore, he whispered. I can't let him, or you, or anyone define who she was. Grace deserves more than to be remembered for her fear. Anna nodded weakly, tears spilling down her cheeks. Then remember her laughter. Remember her before him. Carry that instead of this. Michael walked past her, leaving the folder behind. Outside, the night air felt sharp and cold, slicing through his exhaustion. For the first time in weeks, he wasn't chasing answers. He wasn't planning revenge. He was simply walking away, each step both heavier and lighter than the last. Days later, he boxed up Grace's journal. He didn't destroy it. He couldn't, but he placed it in storage, locking it away like a relic. Some truths, he realized, weren't meant to be solved. They were meant to haunt, to remind, to warn. Miller was still out there, untouchable, smirking in the dark. Anna was still a question mark, ally or traitor or something in between. But Michael was alive, and Grace's memory lived in him. That was all he had left, and for now, it was enough. On the final night of that long winter, he sat on his porch, staring at the horizon as the first snow began to fall. For the first time, he let himself cry, not from rage or fear, but from love. The world would never know Grace's full story. Maybe he never would either. But he knew she had been real, she had been his, and her voice would never stop whispering inside him. And as the snow covered the ground, soft and relentless, Michael whispered back, I'll carry you. Always.